This is Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life station. It is a feel good Friday morning. Ayokunmi right here, taking you into your Friday workday. Smooth breakfast is what you're listening to. And it's that time to take a look at the papers. Yes, bring you the news stories, analysis as well. And we will be taking your contributions. We love to hear from you. We love to get your thoughts, your opinions on the matters as well. It's an interactive session, so we look forward to you being a part of it. Welcome along to the ride with us. And when I say us, I'm not doing this alone. Hey, I never do this alone because I have my analysts in for the morning to break it all down, give their perspective on the stories, and of course, give us food for thought as well. Bozimo and of course, Joseph Obari are in. Very good morning to you, gentlemen. Great to have you in.
Good
Morning,
morning,
Ayo.
Sir Joseph. Good morning, Sir Ayo, and good morning to all of the wonderful listeners out there. Let's make this a feel-good Friday if we can, based on the stories coming up.
Yeah, good morning, AB. I'm not Sir Joseph, please. Correction. Ayo may be Sir Ayo, but not me. Good morning, listeners. You're welcome to the show.
All right. So, we're looking at the stories that we have on board this morning, a couple of different things to actually talk about. And if we're going to start in The Guardian this morning and discuss something coming out of the agricultural sector. In a way, now Nigeria has secured a $134 million loan to invest in farming. The government said on Thursday, as Africa's most populous nation faces a hunger crisis of staggering proportions. Now, according to a statement, Minister of Agriculture and Food Security Abubakar Kyari said the money would support an ongoing plan to boost staples like wheat, rice, maize, sorghum, soybean, and cassava. And if I remember correctly, we talked about the story a couple of weeks ago, something along the lines of Nigeria facing a serious food crisis. If I remember correctly, it was also a story that came out of the Guardian as well. And now we're here talking about securing a $134 million loan to invest in farming. Now, this is not the first time we've talked about huge amounts of money being secured or being put into the agricultural sector. Despite all that, we have other external issues causing problems, insecurity, and so on and so forth. Now, on one hand, is this money going to do what it's supposed to do on one hand? And secondly, looking at how much has been put into this sector over time, is money the main problem that we are facing?
Ayo, you have nailed it perfectly. What I like about this story in The Guardian is that it gives a lot of context. It talks about how, first of all, there is this looming hunger crisis. Just 1 week ago, we heard Mr. Wale Edun saying Nigeria's problems are over. And on that same date was when we discussed the fact that this hunger crisis was looming. So I talked then about the dichotomy. Here in this story, The Guardian does talk about how there is an ongoing crisis that has lasted for decades in the North. So it's not purely about trying to create wheat, rice, maize, sorghum, soybean, and cassava. You need farmers who are alive to be able to do that. It also talks about the flooding that has happened, flooding that happens with a regularity now that makes a huge waste of many of the ongoing farming efforts. What this
Right.
story doesn't even go further to talk about is the fact that the infrastructure to even evacuate whatever is farmed is lacking in many cases. And the story is silent about the fact that we are in, is it month 4 or month 5 of the so-called drop in, I think there was a program for 6 months to import some of this very same food stuff. So we're supposed to have made this food available. There is no update on that program. If the 6 months finishes anytime soon, I said when it started that in the interest of the people, okay, we wanted more food to come in, but
Mm,
that side by side with that was imperative that by the end of that period, we were much more self-sufficient in providing these food items and others. So the Guardian has gone into great length to talk about the inflation rate for food, about the fact that it is not just the farming itself that's at fault. And I also want to I want to put this story in the context of how we supposedly open our borders to food. Are we doing all these things in isolation, or can we demonstrate a plan in place to ensure that Nigeria is really going forward? So yes, we've now secured this 134 million naira, the $1 million,
Dollars.
please, I stand corrected, $1 million loan, one more loan. The problem, like you asked in the first case, is will this money actually get to, let's call it, the farmers, the farming community? Because if it would make a difference in terms of farm inputs, paying for staff to work and paying for logistics and all that. But there's not been a very bright history of money secured in loans like this actually getting to those who would utilize it best and therefore produce more food and by extension reduce the scarcity and inflation on our food items. I have not yet seen the signs that suggest that this will be any different. I am hopeful because I said last week that when you get that kind of warning about food about to be a crisis, it's an opportunity to do something different, something drastic. Money is important, but how we execute remains to be seen. I have a challenge in that regard.
All right. I mean, looking at where we are in terms of food inflation, I mean, I think in June this year, the food price inflation was recorded at about 40.9%. I mean, for those who go to the market on a regular basis, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The prices of staples, rice, gari, beans. Beans now is almost out of reach for a lot of people. So this is a critical time in our existence as Nigerians, as Nigerians in Nigeria. Something needs to be done. If this is going to be utilized properly, it should take us somewhere along the way. But maybe, as you said, we need to figure this out on a long-term basis. Stop gaps, yes, no problem, but you need to deal with the problem. It's not enough to take paracetamol for a headache. Why are you having the headache? Fix what is
Very
causing
correct.
that headache, and then we shall see if things will definitely improve. All right, let's move on to another story here. We're going back to tax reforms, VAT, and all that. It's been a back and forth, with the tax reforms that we talked about recently, and the northern governors they kicked against it and said, "Hey, we don't like where this is going." Now, coming into the Daily Trust, Joseph, I'm coming to you with this one. Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State has commended the tax reforms embarked upon by President Bola Tinubu, but insisted that northern governors are only against the removal of the value-added tax, as VAT, from the federation allocation. Now, he stated this while formally launching an innovative tax digital code initiated by the Nasarawa State Board of Internal Revenue Services at the Government House in Lafayette. So, this is one northern governor speaking, governor of Nasarawa State, saying that, okay, we're not against the tax reforms, but that's VAT removal, that is what we have an issue with.
Yeah, okay. So I think this is like an afterthought, because what they came up with initially was that the entire bill, the law should be removed, that they should withdraw it. They asked the president to withdraw the bill.
The entire bill.
Yeah. So maybe somebody for once is talking intelligently and less emotional, but northern governors have to decide what they really want. Yeah, the reason we all knew where their agitation was coming from. We all knew that their major target on saying that the tax reform bill should be removed, to be withdrawn, was VAT. And the point is that you cannot be destroying bottles of beer in your area and expecting to get rewarded from that same VAT that comes from other states where the beer is consumed. So it's painful to them now. You have to make your choice. I mean, if you abhor alcohol and you say you cannot be taking in your location, your territory, then don't be pained when they say that the derivation will operate in as far as VAT is concerned. So wherever it is consumed is where the money is going to be shared to. So I don't see where there is any logicality in that. I say, well, okay, people who are drinking beer and are paying VAT for it, they should also benefit from it. And you're saying, no, don't do that, don't do that. So what you should do is make your area more attractive for people to come invest,
Right.
buy goods and services. Let there be business. Make your area viable. So the fear of Northern Governor is simply that if you compare the market in their locality, in their areas to consumption power of their population, they may get less from VAT, which they have been sharing on a general pro rata basis or whatever. So this is not a very valid argument. And I think that I'm happy that the president has made his position very firm that he's not going to back down on the reforms. And if they have a very cogent argument, they would have sought audience with the president and discuss it. And of course, the process of lawmaking informs the National Assembly to hold public hearing on this. They can go there and argue their position on that and be able to convince us generally as a nation that there is merit in what they are saying. As far as I'm seeing, is just people are being emotional because they are used to money just being shared and everybody gets a portion of it. And that is not, it shouldn't go. And if we are talking about reform, that is one thing we should correct. We should get states, subnationals being consciously involved in revenue generation, even for themselves. So let the Northern State go. I mean, Nasarawa, for example, has got huge volume of untapped solid minerals. I was
Lithium.
on the golf. Yeah, I've got it. I was
Lithium.
on the golf course the other day, and a fellow golfer playing with me showed me a picture of Python diamond, dug up by his relative, and they're looking for buyers. This is these are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of. If you saw this stuff, it's what you see on Google and TV or what in Nasarawa State, dug up by a relative of his. So what are we talking about? These are the things that should agitate their mind on how best they can tap the resources around them. I know that solid mineral is in the exclusive list, more or less, federal government, but states can work with the federal government to ensure that they can harness the solid minerals and make their places viable. Almost all the states in the solid mineral is being taken illegally. People are just stealing it, and the governors are sitting there waiting for federation account money to be shared to them. It cannot work like that. And in reforms, we must change these attitudes.
All right, AB, you're going to say something really quickly.
Yes, I know it's time for a break, but here's the thing. In context, former Governor Wike took the federal government to task about this VAT. He said, look, I awarded X number of flyovers in my state, and there's VAT on that. Why should the VAT be distributed to other people? I know he's now quiet because he's in the government, but I thought then was a valid case. Lagos even joined that suit at the time. But let me tell you the bottom line in this story. According to them, northern governors are against the word value in value-added tax because every single state in Nigeria is viable if they will sit down and look at the top 6 things they can do. There's a book called the Book of States in Nigeria that shows you every state's top 6 opportunities. If you develop those top 6 or the top 1 or 2, every state can push whatever poverty is behind them, but they don't want to. They want to remain beggars on the national scene. Yes, I said it. And if they continue that attitude, that is when they'll be concerned. Yes, why should you benefit from what you don't like? For goodness sake, alcohol is an example. Somewhere like Kogi State is the confluence of all the rivers. Why don't you make that the tourist capital? In fact, call it the Valentine State. coming together. Anybody who doesn't go to Kogi State at Valentine should be seen as not, what's that their popular word, not demure, not something. So every state can make themselves attractive for one way or the other. But if you sit down and say, hey, value is not what we want to develop, then you will always remain, you will look like a beggar on the national scene.
Food for thought. Food for thought. Let's take a quick break. When we come back in, we'll head into the Vanguard and talk about the 2025 budget. Yes, that is in the news, and there's been an approval of huge sums of money. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back in. Freshly pressed, Smooth 98.1.
Just, it makes little sense. The kind of hills that these people are ready to die on. This VAT is a very, very good issue because Nasarawa State has lithium. Every device we are all using right now contains lithium.
Oh, yes.
Lithium is literally more vital than gold right now, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Because it is powering the world and the future. So Nasarawa State is sitting on huge resources, but the governor there is worried. No, make every person in Nasarawa a part owner in the lithium business there, and Nasarawites, if you want to call them that, will be internationally relevant, not even relevant in Nigeria alone. Come on now.
Yep. Well, here we are.
Here we are.
Welcome back into Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. You're listening to the Smooth Breakfast. Ayokunmi here. It's a feel good Friday morning, and it's feel good vibes all the way. Welcome along to the show with us. AB and Joseph are still analyzing the stories with me this morning. You can also have your say and get your thoughts in. So send those messages into WhatsApp. The number is 0809 444 0981. 0809 444-0981. You can also join us on YouTube. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can drop your comments there, and I will take them as we get along. Let me just sneak a couple of messages in before they pile up like Lagos traffic. This is from Olabode from Surrey. He says, as soon as the GMO discussion started in Nigeria, there seems to be so much traction in fixing the agricultural sector. This funding is likely for the cultivation of GMOs instead of our local seed. Government keeps selling us out. Oluwaseyi says, will the loan ensure farmers can safely return to their farms, or would it ensure farmers will no longer have to live and work in terrorist strongholds and help save them from paying taxes to these terrorists and save them from the backlash from doing so? Definitely not. The major problem with agriculture in the northern part of the country and the middle belts for the past decade or more is insecurity. The government should sort insecurity out, and we may just go back to the pre-Boko Haram levels of production, which wasn't enough for us to consume and also export, but we lived and we managed with it. All right. Jerry says, what's the plan meant for, if I may ask? Hope there's provision in the loan for the bandits, because that's how we take loans to buy ammunition that ends up being taken over by the terrorists. Alluding to a story we took a couple of weeks ago about how ammunition finds its way to these non-state actors. But anyways, keep them coming in. Let's get back into the story. And I'm going to bring AB and Joseph in on this one because, of course, budget. Now, heading into the Vanguard. The Federal Executive Council, that's FEC, yesterday approved a budget proposal of 47.9 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year and borrowing of 13.8 trillion naira. Now, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents at the end of the council meeting, presided over by President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. So, AB, it's November, but already looking forward to 2025.
It's, first of all, good to hear that this is being considered early. At 47.9 trillion, that at least is symbolically 1 trillion per minister. So we have that as a start. We're planning to borrow 13.8 trillion. To look at or assess a budget, there are lots of factors, but some of the factors should be what are the basis upon what that budget is being done. We're talking about a oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel, an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to a dollar.
To the dollar.
And to the dollar. And you are wondering, Is this in any way related to reality? Is this just optimistic thinking and all that? Listen, we've had a lot of budgets, projections, and all that. I'd also like to know what the former budget that was produced was like for the 2024. How did it perform before we start projecting these kind of sums? We keep talking about how we are very resilient. We're only borrowing 3.87% of GDP and all that. And credit must be given to Nigeria because in the past year or so, we did pay down a lot of those outstanding loans that we used to hear about. But
Right.
we are not out of the woods yet. Ultimately, does a budget benefit the people? You see, it is roughly when it's passed in January, we'll start seeing the components of the budget. Then there'll be those discussions of the National Assembly, where, for instance, the National Assembly is increasing the amount allocated to them. I must make reference to a particular story that is grieving my heart. UCH Ibadan was cut off from the national grid recently. They talked about budgets for electricity in billions, and they had paid a huge amount, but they were cut off. Nurses there were using their phones to light up and assist patients. If that budget does not directly include the provision of power at things like healthcare institutions and rather prioritizes the production of perks for those in government offices, including thousands of vehicles as usual, thousands of other things like wardrobe and other allowances, then the budget has already failed Nigerians. If you don't provide health care for the people as part of your social contract, you don't provide security for farmers as part of your social contract, you don't provide education for the children. Remember, this agriculture thing is costing nutrition to be inadequate for children. If you don't prioritize those, and instead prioritize the things like presidential private jets, both for the president, presidential yachts, potentially a new one for the vice president. I'm just saying this as a warning. I haven't seen the contents yet, but based on the track record of successive governments, they don't appear to prioritize uplifting the people. So I'm going to wait until I see the details. But these numbers for now are just thrown out there. I don't know whether those fundamentals are real. The cost of oil per barrel, the rate of the naira against the dollar, etc. Let's wait and see. But I'm looking forward to seeing the detail in that budget. And if it does not prioritize those main things, then it has failed, as far as I'm concerned, as a Nigerian budget. But it can be a success for the government. And this is because the lifestyle of the government and the governing class and the people are vastly separate. The realities are not the same.
All right. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, AB. Joseph, I need to get your thoughts on this one as well, seeing it's a huge deal going forward.
Yeah, my concern is simply that on the one hand, despite all these heavy borrowings, the government officials keep us giving an impression of the positive development that is happening in the fiscal region of government, or how much money there is hope, there are brighter pictures ahead of us. Just adding these figures of the borrowing now, this what they are projecting to borrow for 2025, to the other borrowings that are happening, just the one you mentioned, we're already looking at about 150 trillion national debt. And each for these debts, but I mean, we are talking about domestic and external, you're
Right.
going to be paying interest. So whatever you're generating, it got to a point where we were servicing debt so much that we didn't have any money. And that's what is actually the origin of this borrowing. It's simply that you are using your money, whatever you're getting. We are not even producing enough oil to sell. So even the
That's
little
it.
we are producing and selling, we are using it to service debt. So there is nothing left for them to spend and pay salaries and all that, which not even to do projects, but they are also borrowing for projects. But then at the end of the day, you find that you're adding to what you are servicing. And that the prospect of saying that it's a project, there's a brighter future for Nigeria, I don't see where it comes from. It's only the government officials that see it, but I don't see where the logic comes from. So it's a mirage, this prospect of, oh, brighter future and so on. Because whatever you're getting, you're going to be using it to pay off, pay off, and pay off, and pay off. So that's why it's gloomy.
The one thing,
the gloom is there, and it's real.
Another thing was the production of oil of $2.06 million per barrel. Remember recently, OPEC gave a different figure from what the government reports as our production.
Yeah.
So sometimes I ask, are these fundamentals true or real? We'll wait and see.
We'll definitely wait and see. All right, we need to take one more story here. And also, I'm going to bring the both of you in on this one. And we need to get through it really quickly so we can take messages because time is absolutely flying by. And it's the story concerning the NSA. That's Nuhu Ribadu. Now, the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, that's who has advised Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor to President Bola Tinubu, to keep political theatrics aside in confronting the matters of national security. Now they faulted the open display of partisanship by the NSA in viewing terrorists as mere rivals who, according to him, daring the president. Now, a lot of people have had something to say about those comments made by Nuhu Ribadu, and the question is what these terrorists are doing. I mean, is he coming from the point of view of, oh, these things are affecting Nigerians, or it's affecting President Tinubu in terms of maybe his standing as the president or his office, or what exactly was he thinking behind making the statements in the way he did? AB, let me take your thoughts really quickly, and then Joseph will get his in as well.
I'm just happy that Huriwa said this, because this 1 week ago exactly was when we discussed the story, and I had exactly the same attitude. Who cares directly about Tinubu's role or picture in this? It is ordinary, real-life Nigerians who are being killed and maimed by the terrorists. And I stand on that statement. Kill these terrorists, terminate them. I don't care what name tag, what badge, what covering they call themselves. The only tag that matters is a toe tag on a body bag associated with each dead terrorist. So for them, Nuhu to come out and say anybody that takes on Tinubu is, please, that was completely diversionary, puerile, and pointless. And I'm happy that Huriwa, a respected group, has said exactly the same thing. I said this 1 week ago. It was childish.
Yeah,
right,
that's what, as far as I'm concerned. We have some government officials who have become very infantile in their responses to national discourse. And now Nuhu Ribadu is one of them. The other one, I'm sorry to say, is the Minister of Power. These are like people who talk before they think. They don't really, it shows shallowness in their thought process. That they come out, I mean, Ribadu came out and said, oh, these terrorists are stupid people. They're just very childish comments. I mean, this one really is below, is far, far low. I mean, to come up and say, oh, well, anybody who dares President Tinubu is what, for goodness sake? What do we need? We need actions, just like Ibia said. I don't even need to repeat that. Deal with this situation, then come and talk to us. This is what we have achieved. Even if they were, grant you take it that they were even daring the president, deal with it and come and tell us these people are daring the president and we've taken them out.
All right,
exactly.
Let's do some messages as we round up on the show. Maya from Ikeja says, please, where is the government outrage for the fact that UCH Ibadan has no power, just like they had during the NLC strike? The truth is that the governments don't really care, just vibes. I'll end the message there. Thank you, Maya. Fremi from Lagos says, VAT is a complex tax system. It is ultimately about where the markets are. That is place of consumption. So even for items produced in the north, no VAT will accrue to the states in the region if such items are only transported by the manufacturer and sold in markets in the south, especially Lagos. So the concerns of the northern governors are also about the fact that no tax will be received on such productions in their region. Also, let's not forget that the bill scraps multiple taxes introduced by states like Lagos. So even the governors in the south are not necessarily happy about it as well. Well, they've not been particularly vocal like the northern governors have been, as far as I've seen anyway. What's talking to us here? Michael says, I don't believe the loans will make any difference. Let them outline to the public what phases and how the loan is to be utilized. Then how about security for the farmers. Will the loan cover it also, the security issues? All right. Sunday from Surulere says, yet another loan. Please, can someone calculate how much I'm owing now as a Nigerian? Last time I checked, it was over
That's huge,
600,000
man.
naira.
It's huge on every
Uh,
head. Yeah.
why is this administration mortgaging the future of Nigerians? We all know that this money will be blown into the wind, going by recent evidence of how government initiatives are implemented. I don't expect any magic to happen. Tony from Lagos Metropolis says, nobody goes against Tinubu and wins. Northern governors, we draw that tax reform. We wait with bated breath. And Tony from Marine Beach says, if my religion forbids a practice, it should also forbid whatever comes from that practice. And that's simply logical, unless I want to be hypocritical here. If you don't eat meat, you don't use your teeth to divide it for those who eat it. It's amazing the level of the damage naive approach to religion has done to us as a people. All right. And we've come to the end of the show this morning. We just call it a morning. Thank you so much, AB and Joseph, for joining me on a Feel Good Friday. Always a pleasure.
Thank you to
I
Ayo.
hope we can feel good after these stories. Have a happy Friday, guys. God bless all of you.
All right.
Wonderful weekend, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Stay safe as well. Thank you so much. So you guys, and thank you all for sending your thoughts in to the show this morning. It's been a great week up until this point on Freshly Pressed. Just keep it tuned to Smooth 98.1 and Smooth Breakfast because we're talking about sports at 8:15 in the locker room. Tega is in. The Super Eagles are in the news and so much more.